represented by Graziano Reghezzi, Managing Partner at Sofinova Partners, and also from the entrepreneurial side with Marc de Garidel, who is the CEO at Corvidia Therapeutics. So we'll be looking at the success of this partnership and how you guys managed to make it so successful, and what were the key success factors, and what do you think the key learnings are from your experience? So first of all, perhaps, Graziano, you could give us some background. You could tell us the initial context from an investor's perspective, because you're the co-founder of Corvidia, so you were there at the very, very beginning.
Yes, I was, and thank you very much for having me in this great event, which I understand is a digital event. I learned this word last week at another event. And it's great to be here on a one-on-one with Mark, with whom I've experienced a couple of very interesting years, and we're going to talk about that. Maybe at the beginning, let me tell you, we decided to make an investment based on one strong relationship with one of our entrepreneurs called Michael Davidson. Michael is the former founder and chief medical officer of Omthera, a company that we financed and that we successfully sold to AstraZeneca in 2013. Michael decided to stay on with AstraZeneca for a couple of years. And during that period, he met people, and in particular, 2 or 3 individuals who were working on an antibody against IL-6. And in January 2014 at JP Morgan, when JP Morgan was still a physical event, we actually met to discuss about the option to spin off this program and start a cardiorenal company. We liked the idea. We liked to work with Michael again. We liked the people he had identified in the program. And we carried out some due diligence, and we got convinced that this could have been an interesting opportunity. And so we organized a conversation with AstraZeneca. So the first real step for that meeting was a phone call on which the top management from AstraZeneca was present, and all the way to the CEO. And they decided together that they wanted to give a try to this spin-off. What we liked about it was the fact that the program was not coming on its own, but it was coming with the managers that actually intimately knew that program. For us, it's very important when we do a spin-off that we actually have the people who know the best in the world that program to come with it and risk their future pension on it with us. Once we established all of that, we decided to go for a very little spin-off investment, a seed investment, in collaboration with Michael. And Michael put in 300,000, we put in 300,000, and we started to go out and get these products out of AstraZeneca, but also to in-license 2 other programs from different institutions. And once we've done all of that work, we've spent almost a year of negotiation with Astra. Pascal on the first call had told everybody in his team, if you don't want to do this spin-off, you should tell us now and we will stop. But nobody spoke, and so everybody assumed we were going to do the spin-off. At the last hour, when everything was ready to go, sure enough, one of the managers at Astra decided to raise his or her hand and say, we're not going to do the spin-off anymore. This is out of the question. And that's when Michael and the team called Pascal. Pascal called the manager and told him or her, we decided we'd do the spin-off a year ago. We're not going to pull the plug now after people have worked for more than a year on it. We're going to go forward. This program is out of AstraZeneca. And the spin-off was born. So these are 2 very important lessons for us. You always want to have internal championship that can help you when the game becomes difficult, and it always does in a spin-off. And also, you want to have support all the way up to the top. Ideally, the CEO, if you cannot with the CEO, someone very high up, because it will always hit the fan, and you need someone to stop that process and allow you to start. Strong with that, we went out with the Series A. we did a $26 million Series A, which is by today's standards a big failure, because today, if you don't raise at least 150 million in a spin-off, you are nobody. We actually decided to keep it small, do it only with one partner, ATP, and raise $26 million that would have brought us to the proof of concept of what we wanted to do with the antibody in anemia for dialysis patients. Very important, this notion. Mark will elaborate later why it's important. It's a small indication, biotech friendly. You can go all the way to commercialization with a small biotech. That's why we decided to do this deal. We also brought in a very important person called Sylvie Grégoire, the chairwoman that we know very well as well in our network. We had worked with her in the past. She's on very big boards, including Novo Nordisk. Little did we know that we would have sold to Novo Nordisk in the future. And she was crazy enough to decide to work with us on this very, very tiny little company that was still nascent. And she joined us to help us run the board and help us with all the discussions and decisions you need to take. We launched the study, and we were very lucky because the interim data were really strong. And with those data, we decided to do two things. One, launch the Series B fundraising. And second, contemporaneously, launch for a search of a new CEO, which is typically something you don't want to do at the same time. We decided to do that because we really believe that Corvidia had a strong medical and scientific management team, but we need to have a savvy commercial and financial team. And for that reason, we decided to do it in parallel with the Series B. I had the pleasure to take a flight. You could still fly at that time, and you could still be crazy to go to Boston for one evening and then come back the day after. And I had dinner with one of our very long-standing managers, Michael Davidson. And I had to tell him at dinner that we had decided to evolve the management team, bring in a commercial savvy CEO, and move him into the chief medical officer position. It was a very interesting dinner, emotional at times, but everything went fine. Maybe a couple of days later after the dinner, but as you know, Michael stayed on. He was the chief medical officer until the end of the trade sale of the company, and he actually helped us bring in the new successor, who is, by the way, my partner in crime.
It takes time to digest that type of decision.
It does. Not only the dinner was okay, but the decision, it took a little bit longer.
A little bit longer.
In my next trip, one of my next trips, I got a phone call from Sylvie. And she told me, hey, do you know Mark de Garidel, the chairman and CEO of Ipsen? I said, no, I don't. Why? Well, he might be willing to join Corvidia as a CEO. And my first question was, why on earth would the CEO of Ipsen, a $10 billion company, join Corvidia?
It's a really interesting question. Now I think we should ask Mark to answer that.
That's exactly what I wanted to do. Let's ask him the question.
Ask Mark the question.
Oh, I was crazy, but I've been crazy all my life. So, on a more serious note, I think the excitement around Corvidia was about developing a drug that could make a big difference in the life of patients. And it was really at the forefront of a new concept in cardiovascular disease, that inflammation was playing a key role, and it was not well addressed. So I had a lot of, by the time actually I was contacted by Sylvie, I was on the board of V4 in Switzerland. I had actually already left the CEO job of the hospital, so I was more on, smoking my cigar and enjoying life when he actually disrupted my plans. And to join this very exciting company.
And so you joined the adventure, and then you started working together. But I suppose it's very different, the perspective of an entrepreneur, you as a CEO and as an investor, two different perspectives. Obviously, you both want success. You both want to establish a solid pipeline. but maybe there were some differences between your points of view.
I cannot hear Mark anymore, which reminds me a lot our board meetings when nobody will listen to him. Could you please make sure that I can hear him? Mark,
Me? Yeah?
Yeah.
I hear Peter, I don't hear Mark.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Oh, now I can. Okay, good. So we're
Good.
back in the board meeting.
Good. All right.
So just to find out, your different perspectives from an investing point of view and from an entrepreneurial point of view.
Well, maybe I think obviously the dynamic with the board is and with investors is always an interesting one. I think as a CEO of the company, what you want to do, you want to develop a drug in the best possible way. And for the first year, actually, Corvidia was confronted with a sort of choice strategically. One was to continue on the path of anemia, for which it had excellent data, but for a population in dialysis, which is very severe, or to take a turn toward a much broader market, but meaning more cost to develop the drug. And I think what was very helpful was that I was lucky to come at a time when Novartis did a very large study in the same arena with a less potent drug, but that helped convince, I think, the board and actually also all the scientific advisory board to change direction. So I have to say, for a year, we had a lot of discussion with the board in terms of speed to market, size of the market, investments, possible exits. So these were part of the dynamics, of the discussion.
And how was it for
But
you, Graziano?
Yes, I like to add some color to that. Thank you. It's so keep in mind that the Series A and the Series B invested in anemia. So you have more than $80 million going in for anemia. And at a certain point, there is a change in law and regulations in what is called the bundle, which manages all the drugs that go to dialysis patients, that completely, basically overnight, destroys our market. So we have no market, real market whatsoever for our lead drug overnight. And that, I don't think we planned for that. We were very lucky that Canfos really showed us a way. It's a way that the first time that Mark came to the board to describe, it was requiring 200, 300, 400 million dollars investment to get to fruition. So we thought it was crazy the first time he spoke to us as a board. Then I thought, anyway, this is a cool idea, so I'm gonna test it out with my partnership. And they threw me out of the room because I thought I was crazy. So it took almost a year for us to get the grips around how would you develop this drug that is a multi-billion-dollar drug, but is super difficult to be developed and commercialized by a small company. But we got there, and that's how then Mark played his magic for the exit.
Was it a kind of I suppose we're talking about a relationship which has obviously got improved over time and got closer and closer. But initially, it's all based on trust, isn't it?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think the advantage of at least that I had is most of the board members were all a strong professionals. So I think we could speak frankly with each other. Again, we had some important debates, and in the end, I think the story says we made the right decision.
So when you look at it, yeah, Graziano, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add on the trust is also maybe important to point out that Mark had a very strong relationship with Sylvie. Sylvie had been working with the board for a while. The board members knew each other or relatively to each other quite well from this investment, also from other investments. So trust has a lot to do, particularly when you are redesigning from scratch, basically, your clinical development strategy, which is what effectively we did since Mark joined the board, the company.
Perhaps I can ask both of you this question is, what do you think the future of venture capital is in biotech? Do you think we're going in the right direction, as it were? Do you think we're encouraging enough venture capital?
I was hoping for Mark to go first.
Yes, no, but I think when you're based in the US, and the comment may be a bit different in Europe, but I think today there is indeed a lot of cash available for innovation, but they are very active to invest in new things. And for me, it's very reassuring that people don't stand on the sidelines and still commit to innovation, to take some risk, to bring new treatment for the patients who need it. So.
Graziano?
Yeah, and I can only echo that. I think that this is a great period for healthcare investing and for biotech investing. You can see in all the numbers, in all the projections, that indeed investors are quite bullish about the sector, which is well deserved. What I also liked about the Corvidia story is the fact that if you take all the individuals, the managers that were involved are already getting engaged in their next story, in their next activity. Mark is already CEO of another company. Michael is working on his own new company. The other part of the team are working on their own story. So we are working on new investments. So it's really like a very nice moment in which everybody is excited. And the one thing that COVID has brought us, probably the only positive one, is that we really talk about healthcare in a different way. We've all realized how important it is. And for that reason, I think we have a good period in front of us in biotech and in venture capital.
Obviously, we're here together in Paris with a lot of investors across the world. A lot of people have linked in virtually, obviously, but there are people here present who are obviously looking at biotechs and part of the biotech ecosystem. What would you say to them in terms of, how would you boost confidence in venture capital in relationship to biotechs? What key learnings have you got out of your particular partnership that have inspired you?
Well, for me, Mark, should I go first?
Yeah, go.
For me, is you go back to what we were describing with Mark. It was a difficult situation. I mean, success is always easy to define as success, but we went up and down. And again, we found ourselves in a situation where we didn't know if we had a future. And we worked together diligently with great professionals, obviously Mark on top of everybody, to find the best way forward for us in what could have been a very difficult situation, turned out to be a fantastic success. I think that that's the spirit with which we want to go into biotech, not only now, but in general. There are always ups and downs. You just have to be diligent and work very well with your team and the large team, which is the board, to make sure that you focus on what you can deliver, which is a great drug for a medical need. If you have that in your hands, it will pan out to be good.
Thank you. Mark.
Yeah, on my side, I think one of the key elements to consider in biotech is that there is a large pocket of investment that can be made on a number of drugs or technologies which are actually fairly low risk. And the good news is that if you understand a bit about science, you can find those pockets where there is a big medical need, and yet you can advance the drug in a good way, and the risk level is not as big as starting from a completely new technology. And I think Corvidia is a great example of that. By the way, what we forgot also to mention, which I think was very reassuring to me as CEO, despite some of the debate we had internally, is the level of interest from big pharma. So one of my recommendations for anybody who is also interested in biotech is also to test the appetite of some of the players as to whether they are interested in that technology or in terms of fulfilling that medical need.
Yeah, just finding out beforehand what other pharma interests could be in that particular drug or whatever. Yes. So just as a final word from both of you, what's the one characteristic that you would like to talk about in relationship to Corvidia? What's the one word that would describe it for you? Graziano.
I would say stamina. We didn't stop. We kept going and trying to find that solution and try to find that trial that would unlock a lot of value. We could have given up or we could have panicked. We didn't. We stayed on course and we had a lot of stamina as a group, and Mark led the way all the way through that difficult period.
Yeah, I would say passion. You need to be passionate about what you do and believe in what you do. Even though you enter some obstacles at times and the ups and downs of biotech, but you have to believe in what you do.
Thank you very much, both of you, for your determination and for your passion. I'm going to turn to our audience to see if there's any questions, to see if there's any comments. Anybody wants to say anything? I don't think we've had any questions on the chat, so thank you very much to both of you, and thank you for joining us this afternoon in Paris.
Thank you very much to you for inviting.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And we have a break.